recommendation went to Parliament. Parliament accepted the recommendation, and Parliament made a new constitution. That new constitution, that 1963 Republic Constitution, was also a contract. And the parties were this. There was the federal government, which has its own constitution. There was Western region with its own constitution, Eastern region with its own constitution, and Northern region with its own constitution. So again, if we look at the elements of the contract, the four heads of government, that is federal and regions, they made an offer to the Parliament. The Parliament accepted it and made a law creating the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In other words, by accepting that Republican Constitution, the Yoruba people, we Yoruba people again agreed to be citizens of Nigeria. But again, because our sovereignty was still there, we had dual citizenship. We were citizens of Western region, Yoruba land, and citizens of Nigeria. And again, like before, the 1963 Constitution superseded the 1960s Constitution. It was a legislative act. The Parliament debated it, and it decided that this was the Constitution we were going to have. Just like before, Section 1 of the Constitution says this Constitution shall have the force of law, meaning that it was legally binding on the federal government and each of the three regional governments. So the parties to the contract were again the four sovereignties: the federal government, which by now had replaced the Queen of England, or the British Queen, if you like, Western Nigeria, Eastern Nigeria, and Northern Nigeria. Those are the four sovereigns, the four groups that agreed the 1963 Constitution. And you will begin to understand why I'm emphasizing this all the time, that the Constitution of 1963, like the Constitution of 1960, was by agreement between four groups: the federal government, the Western government, the Northern government, and the Eastern government. And as before, the Constitution included the right to terminate the agreement, which was in Section 4.1. And it says the same as before, that Parliament may alter any of the provisions of this Constitution. It says Parliament. It doesn't say anybody can come from outside and alter it. That in order to alter the Constitution of Nigeria, only the Parliament could do it. Western Nigeria, that is Yoruba land, again had its own separate constitution. This time, what is important about that constitution this time was that it was enacted by the regional legislation in Ibadan. It was in Ibadan that they made the constitution of Yoruba land. And at the beginning, they stated that this was a self-governing region of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let that sink in. When the legislatures of Western region wrote the Western region constitution by themselves, they wrote it themselves, they indicated that the Yoruba land, the Western region, was a self-governing region of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And what is important about that constitution is Section 89.7. This is which tells you that the Yoruba land was a separate sovereignty. And this is what that section says. It says, for the avoidance of doubt, it is hereby declared that any power to make laws conferred by this constitution includes power to make laws having extraterritorial operation. I don't know if you understand that. What they are saying is that the laws of Western region can include external affairs. And in fact, the Nigeria embassy today was bought by Western region. Nigeria didn't buy it. It was owned by Western region. Once everybody else, they were doing their yeah all over the place, Awolowo and co, they established a proper embassy. round the corner from Downing Street, round the corner from Parliament. That's to tell you, as a sovereign nation within Nigeria, Western region was going places. So if I summarize what I've just said, in 1960, for our independence, we Yorubas, we made a choice to be Nigerians. In 1963, when we decided to be a republic, we Yoruba people decided that we were going to be Nigerians. But under certain conditions. Number one, the Constitution was an agreement between 3 sovereign nations. So this was not a constitution that was imposed by anybody or written in one corner. It was agreed. So each region had its own constitution. Northern region had its own constitution. Eastern region had its own constitution. Western region had its own constitution. On top of that was then the federal constitution. Because the power that the federal government had was ceded to federal government by the regions. That's why it was called a federation. That's why they called it federation. Because the power that the center had was ceded to it by the regions. Everything changed in 1966. If I go back again, remember the first time that the Yoruba agreed to be Nigerians, it was a legislative act by the British Parliament. A legislative act. The second time, it was a legislative act by Nigerian Parliament. Then we come to 1966. Everything changed. Now, to be citizens of Nigeria was now, to be a Nigerian was now imposed on you by the military. These soldiers, they carried out treason. Treason. They murdered in cold blood. If you remember, the head of the federal government, Tafawa Balewa, the head of the Western region, Ladoke Akintola, the head of the Northern region, Ahmadu Bello. So 3 of the 4 sovereigns, Nigerian soldiers, killed the heads. I mean, I'm not going to go into why the first one survived. I mean, that's another story entirely. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is that Nigeria was composed of 4 sovereignties. In 1966, they killed the head of 3 of the sovereignties. And after that, the Nigerian military, in their arrogance, drunk with power, they unilaterally created a new Nigeria. Remember the Nigeria we are talking about before the independence or the Republic? Western region, Eastern region, Northern region, they came together. They agreed that we are going to have Nigeria, so they get independence. They come together again, we are going to have a republic, so they get a republic. This time, from 1966, the soldiers, as I said, drunk with power, so full of themselves, they unilaterally created a new Nigeria, to which nobody, so this is the 3rd version of Nigeria, to which nobody agreed. Not one person agreed. So they then made things worse. Instead of 4 sovereignties that we had before, they decided that there was only going to be 1. Do you understand? Do you understand where I'm coming from? 4 sovereignties. That's what we had before. for independence, for republic. But the army decided that they were now going to have their own Nigeria. They decided that they were going to now have their own Nigeria. So they dispensed of Western region, they dispensed of Eastern region, they dispensed of Northern region. Without debate, without consultation with anybody, they decided that this is what they were going to do. So the sovereignties that were agreed for independence in 1960, that were agreed for republic in 1963, these people just dispensed of it. And then to make things worse, in May 1999, the Fulani militarists, they decided that they were going to impose their own feudal constitution on Nigeria. Their own feudalistic constitution. They decided that they were going to impose it on Nigeria. They did not consult with Yoruba people. They didn't consult with us whether we were going to be part of their Nigeria. We didn't have any contract with the soldiers who are making all these decisions. We have not agreed to any of this Nigeria. So the third Nigeria, the Nigeria of today, which started in 1966, we have never agreed to it. And what I say about this, the acronym that I use for this is that today we Yoruba are Nigerians in fear only. We are not Nigerians by choice. So before we had Nigeria by choice. I'm sorry that I keep repeating myself, but I think this is very important that we understand this. How we Yoruba came to be Nigerians. 1960, for independence, we agreed with Northern Nigeria and Eastern Nigeria that we were going to become Nigerians. So we became Nigerians. 1963, again, we agreed with Northern Nigeria, Eastern Nigeria, to form a republic of which we will be Nigerians. Then in 1966 came the army, the soldiers. They decided that they didn't like the Nigeria that we agreed to create. They decided that they were now going to create their own Nigeria. They created their own Nigeria. They didn't ask anybody. They just decided they didn't like the old Nigeria. They must now create a third Nigeria in which the constitution is almost like a feudal system. Almost like a feudal system. So that instead of a collegiate, which is what we had before, a collegiate, we just had one man who decided everything. We have legislatures that can steal your money as much as they like. They created chaos, and Nigeria has been in chaos ever since. Now, don't think that the Yorubas are the only one that don't like what happened. Don't think that I'm the only one who is talking about sovereignty and nobody else. Remember this, the Eastern region rejected their loss of sovereignty. Let me say that again. The Eastern region, they rejected the loss of their sovereignty. And what did they do? In 1967, they fought the Biafra War for it. Biafra War didn't just happen. It was as a result of the fact that they lost the sovereignty that they had negotiated in 1960 and in 1963. That's how the Biafra War came about, and it lost up, and the Eastern region lost up to 2 million lives because they wanted to regain their sovereignty. Okay, you think it's only the Eastern region? No. The Northern region too, they have rejected the loss of sovereignty. They are not happy that they have lost sovereignty. How do we know that? We know that because in 2000, they instituted in their 12 Arewa states the Sharia constitution. And they say to us, to the rest of Nigeria, that the Sharia constitution was superior to the Nigerian constitution. In other words, Nigeria that we are in now, that all these, I don't know what you will call our politicians, that they are so happy to govern, the actual signatories to Nigeria, they don't agree. There is no region in Nigeria that agrees with the way Nigeria is. I know if I go back to the beginning, I know everybody says, oh, well, Nigeria was created in 1914. Nigeria did not exist. There were no Nigerians. There were no Nigerians at all until the three regions agreed to have independence. Before then, Nigerians, what would be Nigerians were just British subjects. Nigeria was a colony. Nigeria was not a country. Nigeria was a colony, part of British Empire. So there were no Nigerians until the three groups, Eastern region, Northern region, Western region, until they came together, agreed. It doesn't matter what anybody might say about their motives or whatever. The fact is, they formed Nigeria by agreement. Nigeria came into existence by agreement on the 1st of October 1960. And when they then decided that they were going to go republic and no longer to be under British tutelage, again, the three regions agreed. The three regions agreed that we were going to have a republic. From 1966, there are no Nigerians since 1966, because the agreement that created the Republic of Nigeria is in abeyance. It's there in one corner. And until you revive that 1963 constitution, there's no Nigeria. I know that those who rule Nigeria do not believe in law. I mean, the soldiers have taught us to be lawless, and that's exactly what is happening. From 1966, Nigeria has been governed lawlessly, and that's why it's easy for them to steal the money, because there's no law. Nigeria has existed as a lawless jungle since 1966, because the agreement that people had to say, I'm a Nigerian because we had our own constitution that says so. Okay, I hope that I've explained to you how we Yorubas became Nigerians, and our period of being Nigerians lasted less than 6 years, actually. It started 1st October 1960, and it ended on the 15th of January 1966. And
sir,
until
please, I want you to repeat that
the
statement,
regions
sir.
come together again to